Good evening. It's great to see all of you here. I'm Sally Yurkovich, Director of Educational Exchange and Special Projects at the American Scandinavian Foundation. That means that I oversee all of our fellowships and grants programs. And in addition to our fellowships for Americans and fellowships for Nordic students, we have a number of smaller programs that are very specialized. And tonight, we're very happy to have one of the beneficiaries of those programs with us. Every year, we support a visiting lectureship for, we fund a scholar from Norway to spend a semester at a US university. So Silje Solheim Karlsen is currently at the University of Wisconsin for the semester and teaching there, as well as lecturing in various places around the US. So we're very happy to have her here tonight. In her usual life, she is a professor of Nordic Literature at the Arctic University of Norway, and also an associate professor at the Sámi University of Applied Sciences. Her research in recent years has focused on subarctic literature, Sámi literature, and literature from Sápmi and Nordkalotten. We're happy to welcome her tonight when she's going to talk about the Sámi Problem, uncomfortable, furious, infinitely sad. This is Kathrine excuse my pronunciation, Nedrejord's critically acclaimed novel, The Sámi Problem. And it's a story of Marie, who has long hidden her Sámi identity. And Silje will take us through the novel and tell us more about it and how it relates to the process of finding and acknowledging one's identity. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me come here to talk about something that is very close to my heart, that is Sámi literature. I am from a coastal Sámi family from Norwegian Sápmi, who unfortunately experienced the harsh Norwegian assimilation politics. So neither my mother nor my father learned Sámi. Our Sámi background has not been totally concealed, but neither has it been expressed explicitly. I was 14 the first time I heard someone in my family say that we are a Sámi family. Of course, my background has played a part in my interest in Sámi literature and literature as a whole, because stories tell us who we are and where we come from. But how is it possible to speak of or write one story when it's full of holes created by others? This is the case for the main character in Kathrine Nedrejord's new novel, The Sámi Problem. How is it possible to write one story when experiences have been silenced or are too painful or destructive? How is it possible to write about the people who are not allowed to use their own language or to practice their culture, who are not allowed to be who they are? How is it possible to write about something you yourself has hidden, not forgotten, but abandoned, escaped from, because it almost wiped you out? At first, Marie stood up and fought back. Then she became infinitely tired, endlessly sad, resigned, and left. At the beginning of the novel, Marie lives in France with her husband and almost newborn daughter, Anna, and she writes for a living. She writes for magazines and journals. She writes factual texts about language death and revitalization. She writes about indigenous peoples, primary industries, and the threats they face in modern society. The French audience is interested in the northern countries, but Marie never writes about Norway. She situates her issues and themes in Canada, maybe Sweden or Finland, but she keeps a distance between what she writes and what she is. At the beginning of the novel, Marie submits a piece of fiction to a French publisher. In this text, she has erased everything that might remind of reality. Oh, sorry. She wants to write something neutral, to get away from the real towards something universal. And the editor's feedback is devastating. The editor writes that the text Marie submitted is vague and foggy, lacking a properly grounded narrator, a message, and a story. The editor writes that she had been looking forward to reading about a landscape totally different from the French, and that by opting out of it and instead choosing this, Marie has created a story that resembles 1,000 million stories. The editor asks, is this really what Marie wants to write? Marie is a writer, yet she struggles to write. She struggles to write about what matters. She does not write about Norway, and certainly not about Sápmi. She has not even told her husband that she is a Sámi. She left Norway behind when she not only moved, but she fled. And that affected her relationship not only with Norway, but with Sápmi, her homeland, the Sámi way of life, and her family. At first, coming to France and not being Sámi, just Norwegian, or even better, just being Scandinavian, was a relief. But by erasing her background, Marie loses herself. She becomes as neutral as the story she sent to the French publisher. The first part of the novel reflects this despair and disorientation that Marie feels about her writing. It is fragmented, jumps from theme to theme. She writes, but she avoids everything that comes too close to her own background or the place she comes from. I've lost hold of who I was, she writes. You lack a soul, I think, almost aloud to my reflection. You are a nobody. What I write is meaningless. I lack the words to write what I want to write. They do not exist in Norwegian, nor in French. And they do not exist in Sámi for her either. But then something happens that turns Marie's life and world upside down. Her grandmother, her Akko, dies, and Marie must return to Finnmark, in the Norwegian part of Sápmi, to attend the funeral. And she goes without her husband Clement and the daughter Anna, because Anna does not have a passport yet. On this journey, she starts to write. And the writing almost takes on a will on its own. She writes about Akko. At first, hesitantly, on the back of receipts and old shopping lists and post-it notes and old scraps of paper. When thoughts of Akko emerge, she simply just have to write it down. And at this point, she's not realizing that she now is, in fact, finally writing about Akko, about Sápmi, about herself. When the project takes shape, it runs away as if it overflows and comes by itself. It is a current, furious, beautiful, and frenetic. The void Marie feels is filled by writing about Akko. And of course, it's not a coincidence that Marie's process of healing starts with telling Akko's story. Studies of indigenous experiences of oppression and and violence not only show that there's a relationship between violence against indigenous women and histories of colonial exploitation, but also that indigenous women's strategies for resilience and resistance involves culturally specific factors such as connecting to family and storytelling. And not least, the voices of women are important in these processes, as they are community-orientated, reflects ways of knowing, and the relational characteristics that bind together land, culture, knowledge, practices, and people. Writing about Akko is writing about the Sami. None of us are just family history. But Akko is not just family history either. Akko is a snapshot of time, but also a foreshadowing of what was to come. We are Sami, but they took our history, said it was reserved for Western civilization. We stood still, they said, and thus they tore up our roots and made the ground under our feet unstable. We need a history. We must know, I think, where we come from in order to find the right path into the future. What a cliché, I think, but true nonetheless for those of us who were denied the right to a past. For Marie, telling Akko's story is a way for her to heal and to become whole. I have really lost grip of who I was. Hold on to Akko. It is easier. Akko is not a nature description. Akko is not poetry. Akko must become meaningful words. Akko deserves a text that aims for more than just being a text. Marie honors the modes of communication in Sami culture, the power of oral communication, depiction, and storytelling, when she says she wants to write as her mother tells stories. My mother is traditional Sami literature, the oral. She writes with her voice, colors her stories, never in muted tones, but in bright red, bright blue, neon pink, or deep black. And this is what Marie does. The novel addresses issues that are well known, such as the Norwegian assimilation policy, racism, and the ignorance of the majority population regarding the Sami. But the way it does so is striking. She writes with her voice, absolutely not in muted tones. She shouts about how the Sami have been subjected to so much injustice, oppression, racism, hatred. She mourns the losses and injustice done. She not only touches it, it's like she puts her hands into the open wounds and presses and pinches. And it's impossible not to be moved. And the catalyst for this story is Akko. Marie's grandmother grew up during the harshest assimilation period, the Norwegianization, when all Sami were to become Norwegian. The Sami language was mostly forbidden. Sami culture was to be hidden. This period lasted about 100 years. And it was devastating for Sami language and culture. It affected all of Sápmi. No one learned about Sami people or Sami history in school. And the Sami themselves did not learn about their own history. All narratives were written by others from an outsider's perspective. And this assimilation policy had a dramatic and remarkable effect, because children were no longer just children. People were no longer just people. They became an ethnicity. Akko grew up as a child, as an inventive and an active child. She was the youngest in the family. She fished, she played, she was dressed up by her older sisters like a doll. She grew up as a child, a daughter, a sister, a girl. But when she started school, she became a Sámi. Akko became Sámi earlier than me, long before she turned 10. Akko looked forward to becoming a school pupil. Instead, she became Sámi. And the picture is from the school in the place where this novel takes place. Markanjarga is a fictional name for Karasjok, the actual place. So this is a picture from the school in Karasjok during the assimilation period when all the Sámi children were to learn Norwegian. And to be Sámi in this school was to be humiliated, to be considered stupid all day. Akko was good at everything else, but not at what required language, which school mainly is about. She could not speak Norwegian, but she had to learn it. She could speak Sámi, but was not allowed to speak it and did not learn to write it. She became literate in Norwegian and illiterate in Sámi. And what is even more sad about this is that 50 years later, Marie also experiences this shift from being a girl to being a Sámi. When Marie was born in the 1980s in the fictive name Markanjarga, a core Sámi village in the middle of Sápmi, where almost everyone is Sámi. Marie was not born as Sámi, she was just born as Marie, a baby girl, one of the Engmo family. And as a baby, at 2-3 years old, she was a child, a peculiar child who preferred stories to play. But no one said that she was Sámi, because when everyone is Sámi, no one is Sámi. They are simply themselves. Marie became Sámi at the age of 10, when her family moved from Markanjarga to Seifjord, to a small village on the coast of Finnmark, areas that had been almost entirely assimilated and Norwegianized, where anti-Sámi sentiment later smoldered in a mix of hatred, contempt, and lost Sámi identity. On her first day at school, someone shouted after her, "She's a fjellfinn, the new one. She's a fjellfinn." "What does fjellfinn mean?" I asked my mother when I got home. "It's an ugly word for Sámi," my mother said. And so I became one. In Seifjord, I became Sámi. In Seifjord, Marie encounters labels such as fjellfinn, fjellfinnjævel, very difficult to translate into English, but not very nice words. And comments along peers about what would happen if any Sámi should ever dare to show up in Seifjord. They would surely be beaten, chased, even shot. One classmate said that he would get his father's shotgun if a Sámi suddenly walked in the streets of Seifjord. This is what youth said in Sápmi around the year 2000, most certainly also later on, and for sure you can still read this in commentaries in social media today. For Marie, it is a constant and daily struggle to maintain dignity in the face of ridicule and contempt. She learns to constantly listen for the underlying tones in conversations, in the village, at school, among friends. Simply wearing a gakti, a traditional Sámi dress, was enough to be subjected to mockery and malicious remarks. Even though the Norwegian language was familiar to Marie compared to her grandmother, because Marie grew up as a bilingual, this feeling of becoming something inferior and unworthy was the same as her grandmother had 50 years ago. This had not improved. And this is so sad. And at this moment, I will have to put Nedrejord's novel on hold for a minute, on pause for a minute, to give space for another Sámi author who tells stories through the eyes of her foremothers. Because when reading this novel, I immediately thought about the Sámi poet Synnøve Persson, who in her recent collection, The Skies Are Burning from 2023, introduces us to 9 of her foremothers across 8 generations. The collection serves as a document of lived Sámi female lives. And in one of the first poems, it is described like this. They all sit in the family hut, 8 generations of foremothers dressed in grey gakti. They have waited a long time, patiently follow the daylight turning towards the dark night throughout the centuries. Their voices emerge at morning's edge of the night, whispering across plains and the northern land. The yoik arrives at dawn, barely heard among the bare birches. The voices of the foremothers emerge, intrude, and we can hear their yoik. Their stories are to be told. And one of the stories are about the boarding schools and the experiences Sámi children had in these schools during the Norwegianization period. This poem is about Persson's own mother. Mother had soon a new striped gafted for the girls when they went away for school. But they were teased and bullied so harshly that none of them ever wore a gakti again. It forever affected Ayla's self-esteem when the schoolmaster with a pointer struck the 7-year-old on the head and shouted, "You will be nothing. You are far too stupid." The words followed her through life until that Sunday morning she drew her last breath. Telling the story of her mother, Persson shows how the violent actions against Ayla influenced her all her life, how the Sámi was othered as the poorer, the lesser, the most in need for correction and discipline. And these stories are important, not only for the individuals suffering from injustice, but for the communities, for the people. It is important that they are not only told, but that we listen to what they tell us. Another event given attention in both Persson's poetry collection and Nedrejord's novel is World War II and the evacuation of the county of Finnmark. Toward the end of the war, in November 1944, when the Germans realized that they would lose the war and Russian troops were on their way over the border to Finnmark, all of Finnmark and northern Troms were evacuated before Germans burned everything down. Every house and barn, every building, bridge and pier, everything in ashes and ruins. In a few towns, they left the church. 5 churches were not burnt. For instance, in Karasjok, where this novel takes place, and Alta, where I come from. Persson's foremothers were also evacuated south. Both her grandmothers and one great-grandmother. Finnmarkings, who had already lost everything, were sent to southern Norway on a large German freighter over open stretches of sea. On the boat, they also transported explosives and ammunition. 850 people crammed on the bottom of the boat, corpses, sick, children. Her great-grandmother, who only knew the Sámi language and also was mentally ill, was sent all alone First to a hotel in the south, then to a nursing home where no one spoke her language. No one understood her. She didn't understand anyone. Before the end of the war, she died, sick and lonely with no one to talk to. And they never found out whether she was buried or not. They never found a grave. And to end the pause and resume the novel again, Nedrejord tells that her grandmother and her family, they actually tried to hide and stay behind in Finnmark when the evacuation took place. And actually, 23,000 out of 60,000 people hid and stayed behind in Finnmark, in caves, turf huts, under stone slabs, and other places they could find shelter. And even more people tried to hide, but were found and some of them also killed. Marie's grandmother and her family hurried away one night and hid in a turf hut at Gamme, up in the valley with their animals. But someone informed the Germans and the soldiers found them. They were lucky because they did not get killed or beaten, but they were forced to evacuate south. They saw the German soldiers burn down their house and the shed. They saw their animals being shot, and they also saw the bridge in the town being blown up. When the occupation authorities were to assign them a destination, their Sami background played a role. The father told his daughters to go and stand elsewhere, further back, with their Sami clothes. And when asked for their names and ethnicity, he cleared his throat and said, "I'm Swedish." And because of this, they were sent to a manor far south in Norway, where they didn't suffer. But those who did not hide their Sami roots were sent to barns and sheds in small, poor fishing villages further north. Both Nedrejord and Persen used their foremothers almost as mediums for their story. It is the women's voices we hear telling Sápmi's history from a female perspective. The women had other experiences than the men during this history, not least in the encounters with majority men. As a young woman, Akko had a boyfriend, a fiancé actually, a Norwegian from further south in the country, Eilert. He had come north to work. He liked her, enjoyed her company, found her pretty, capable, and competent, but Eilert did not like Sami people. He was surprised when he learned that she was Sami, because she did not smell bad. She, on the other hand, found him funny with all his strange remarks and thoughts. He did not want her to speak Sami, and wanted her not to be Sami either. And later on, Akko did not speak much of him, other than that he had died in a car accident or plane accident or something. And that after that, she moved to Markanjarga, where she attended folk high school and then met Marie's grandfather, her Adja. During the novel, it turns out that Eilert did not die in any accident. He did not die at all, at least not then. But obviously something must have hurt her so much that he was as good as dead to her. Anyway, Akko refused to give up her Sami identity. In Seifjord, 50 years later, Marie has a boyfriend who also dislikes Sami people and expresses this in both words and actions. He knows that Marie is a Sami, but she is nice, has no reindeer, and she's not like the others. Like Eilert, he does not want Marie to express or show her Sami-ness. And during the novel, it turns out that Even, his name is Even, He is, as so many people from the coast of Finnmark, also of Sami descent, but he denies it so strongly and hates so intensely that the relationship ends. And then Akko's and Marie's paths diverge completely. Because Marie gives up all of Norway. And it is actually an art exhibition with the art of Nils Aslak Valkeapää that becomes the last straw for her. The exhibition shows a little film from the awarding of the Nordic Council Literature Prize in 1991. Valkeapää got his prize for this poetry collection, The Son, My Father. And the film in this art exhibition shows Valkeapää on stage with a Sami flag, using his speaking time to criticize the Nordic countries for their treatment of the Sami. And the film also shows that during his speech, the Norwegian Prime Minister at the time, Gro Harlem Brundtland, our first female Prime Minister, by the way, she sat and shook her head while he was speaking. And after his speech and yoik, she did not give her applause. And for Marie, this was enough. She becomes so frustrated with the systematic ignorance and the Norwegian state's refusal to acknowledge the injustice done to the Sami that she gives up, moves to France, loses connection with the Sami, but also loses herself. So Akko was stubborn. She embraced the Sami identity. She worked, she wanted an education, she refused to stop being Sami. She even bought Sami books, even she had never learned to read Sami. But she bought all the Sami books that were published. She forced herself to be proud of it. She dressed her children in Sami clothing, but for her, of course, it was only clothes. She never became Norwegian, and therefore she remained Sami. When Marie in the novel finally writes, it is like this unstoppable current, a wave. She goes from being hesitant and fumbling to being furious. And I must say, I think I find it quite liberating to read rage in capital letters in a novel. When met with stupidity, ignorance, encounters statements such as, well, you are all just a mix of various ethnicities up there in the north anyway. Marie wants to shout, and she does. It was not us who claimed that the Sami race existed. It was Scandinavian scholars. We did not want to lose our culture, our language. We did not ask the Norwegian state to ban Sami first names, Sami naming traditions, Sami belief, Sami language in schools so that our great-grandchildren would have something to complain about. We did not ask Scandinavian missionaries to erase our religion, force Christian names on us, call joik and latjugapir, horned hats, the devil's work. We only wanted to keep what was ours. That was all we wanted. We only wanted to be allowed to practice our culture without the parliament and church of the country that decided our land belongs to them, implementing active policies to dismantle our traditional livelihoods and our culture. We asked for two things. We want to exist and we want to be Sami. That was one thing too many. And there are quite a lot of pages like this with capital letters. But the Norwegian state does not listen to cries. The Norwegian state is calmness itself. The Norwegian state says, we speak quietly here. So I desperately want to scream, but the Norwegian state closes its ears to rage, thinking, what barbarity. The Sámi Problem address Sápmi's history and situations through the experiences of women. Akko, Marie's mother, Marie herself, and her daughter Anna. And it is precisely with her daughter Anna that the novel reaches perhaps its most tender point, where the fury is beaten by the sad. For Sámi people, land, place, nature is not only important but essential. And when Marie comes to Finnmark for the funeral, she cries when she feels and sees the land again, the light over the fjord and the fell. Finnmark is a place she cannot be indifferent to, a place that she loves, but which also hurts. What will it be like for Anna? Will Anna taste a freshly picked cloudberry? Will Anna feel how the crooked and twisted pine trees provide security through both appearance and scent? Will Anna run into the mountains, ride up the river by boat, fish and swim? There is a Sámi term, gaibmi, a namesake, which in Sámi culture implies a true, not only linguistic connection. Marie is Akko's gaibmi, because Akko's name was Anne-Maria, and Marie is called Maria in Sámi. And Anna will be Anne in Sámi, so she will be Akko's gaibmi as well, but sadly not experience her in life, of course. But will Anna immediately feel warmth when she hears that word, gaibmi? Will Anna feel how it's like to put on a gakti? The proudness, how strong and beautiful you feel when you put it on. Marie has thought that exposing her daughter to Sámi culture will be like neglect, because it can be so difficult and painful and dangerous to be Sámi. Marie has a room inside her that stores negative Sámi experiences, compresses them into one large painful mass that fills her with rage. Will Anna experience reading comments on social media? Damn Sámi, shoot them first, then the reindeer, and then know that it applies to her. It is not Sámi culture that Marie wants to hide from Anna. It is the Norwegian she hates. How it's typically Norwegian to assimilate, ignore, and make invisible. Marie moved to Seifjord and began to feel ashamed of being Sámi, but she grew up to feel ashamed of being Norwegian. During the novel, Marie tells the Sámi stories like her mother did. Her mother tells and tells stories all the time. She tells Akko's life. Her mother is the one who walks around with this Sámi women's life in her head and passes it on. And now it's Marie's turn, not only to tell the stories to Anna, but to tell Anna into the Sámi story. She would have to say, "We are Sámi, you and I, Anna. We are Sámi." And further, you will grow up in a time that tries to convince you that everything is about you, and you will grow up in a time with a mother who tries to shake off that thought. It's not dangerous to belong to more than one we, more than one group of people, Anna. I hope that you will say that you are Sámi one day, when it will be up to you to put such things into words. I hope you don't divide yourself into pieces, call yourself half one and half the other. Your small chubby arms are whole. You are whole, Anna. You are not percentages. There is not a pure-blooded person out there. I would say something like that. I would write it. And before she leaves Sápmi for this time, Marie makes an appointment in France to arrange for a passport for Anna. And she brings back to France a child's gakti, size 1 year. Indigenous women use storytelling to resist and respond to effects of violence and oppression. But the stories not only function at resilience and resistance, they also remind us the power of stories. how stories tell us who we are and where we come from, how healing is a lifelong commitment and an action, how identity is how we raise our children, how we stand up for who we are and what we believe is right. Thank you. Questions or anything? Yes?
What were the years of isolation that you referred to?
From about 1850, for the assimilation period. Yeah, from about 1850 to 1950.
Okay. And then how does one recognize themselves as being Sámi? Is it the grandparents, the great-grandparents, both sides?
Yeah, now to be allowed to enroll in the Sámi, what is the English word for it? Well, it's kind of a, you have to register to be able to vote as a Sámi. Yes, and to register you must have either speak Sámi yourself, of course, or your grandparents or grandparents.
So your grandparents must be Sámi?
Yeah.
But how would they prove that when they're going to vote?
No, you register and then you prove it by, for instance, the countings of people, church books, photographies. Yeah.
But did they have genealogy?
No.
So it's very...
Based on, yeah, what you actually identify you as yourself. Mm.
What is the Sámi population?
Oh, I think it's difficult. It's so many because there are no. You have this register for the voting, but there are quite a lot of Sámi people who never have registered for voting. So I don't know, perhaps 70,000 in total for over 4 countries. Yeah. Back there first.
I noticed you only mentioned reindeer once. I saw a film recently, Can You Be a Sámi, which about our reindeer. Was that in your novel, and what relationship?
Yes, in this novel she writes not so much about it, but a little also, because the main character here, Marie, she does not come from a reindeer herding Sámi family. And in the inner part of Sápmi, like Karasjok, the reindeer herders are, of course, in majority, but there are some Sámi families who have never had reindeer or had other, did other things. And also on the coast, all the coastal Sámi, they were small-scale farmers and fishermen and did not have reindeer at all. Mm.
I'm looking into my history genealogy quite a bit, and my mother was, she's Norwegian, she lived in occupied Norway when she was about 20, and lived here, and has done genealogy for many hundreds of years, all sides of her family. Interestingly enough, my grandmother, she does not have
Yeah. And you know, the government did countings of the Norwegian populations every 10 years from the mid 1800s. And then they also registered ethnicity. So then you had to cross whether you were Norwegian, Sámi, Kven, that is a kind of a Finnish minority, or mix. Yeah, and then you also gave up your home language, whether it was Norwegian, Finnish, or Kven, Sámi, or a mix. So that happened every 10 years from the mid 1800s until the Second World War. So you can use that to kind of trace back your family history and see. But then again, because of this assimilation politics, quite a lot of Sami people didn't cross in the Sami box. So yeah, and also in 1902, it was a law that said that to be able to own land, you had to be Norwegian. So then a lot of Sami people, they changed names from Sami names to Norwegian names, and so yeah, difficult.
It was quite ironic because my mother used to, I would always question, she was your mother Sami? And she would say, oh, no, 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 no. And ironically, when she came to the U.S., at that time in the 40s, my father, like, who's American, was very insistent that she lose her Norwegian accent, and that she was more American than Norwegian. At that time, that wasn't cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I just found that very interesting and ironic that she was I'm gonna. Thank you.
In Norway, are any Sami in the government?
Yes, I think so. At least there have been, but I think we haven't had an election quite recently in September. I think there is at least one Sami in the Norwegian government. Yes.
I'm struck by how all over the world, the natives in Australia, the minority, the Native Americans in the U.S. and Canada, have a very similar story of the assimilation period of colonial times. And here, there's a genetic marker for Native Americans. Is there also a genetic marker for Sami or not?
No. That's yeah, because I think that's a Norwegian official policy not to kind of use genealogy to categorize people.
Say if you just did Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Like when I did my part of Chippewa Indian, and didn't see a genetic marker. Is there a marker that would show up on Ancestry.com?
I think the most people who do that send in their DNA to check who they are. The Sami often comes as Finnish. Yes.
Is there any physical distinction between a Sami and a Norwegian, say?
No, I don't think so. Not anymore, at least.
So there's no physical distinction, it's the clothing that's different and the language.
Clothing, language, yeah, parts of the culture, of course. Yeah. Yeah. There was a Truth and Reconciliation Committee in Norway working for 5 years, and they filed their report to the government in 2023, identifying measures to kind of, well, gain truth and reconciliation. The state budget that these days have been presented does not open up for so many of these measures, unfortunately. One of those were, for instance, financing more Sámi literature, which would be very important for in such a process. Many Sámi people think that this report and the media publicity it got when it was kind of presented is just empty words, no actions. But then again, compared to the other Nordic countries, I think actually Norway has come quite far in the acknowledgement of Sámi culture and how Sámi children have the right to learn Sámi in school, for instance, no matter where you live in Norway. Yeah, even in the cities, even in Oslo. So better than in some countries, but could of course be much better. Mm.
I think Norway is considered a Lutheran country. It's a state religion. Are the Sámis part of that? Do they have their own religion?
Not anymore. The old Sámi religion, completely disappeared, I think, more or less during the 16 and 1700s with the missionaries and where Sámi religion were forbidden. And there's this religion movement in the northern part of Sápmi called Lestadianism. The founder was a Finnish priest from the north of Sweden, and they started in around 1850. A lot of Sámi actually belong to this quite conservative Lutheran religion. A little louder, please.
So the idea of reparations,
Yeah.
the idea that you could sort of potentially compensate particular populations for abuses that have happened, given Norway's massive sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm a literary scholar and not an economist, but the Sámi Parliament was established in 1989 in Norway and gets its funding from the Norwegian government each year. So there's kind of a economic compensation for it through the Sámi Parliament. I don't know who was first, but yeah.
Just quickly, but from what you were saying about the book, I didn't know if it was her story or if this is true, but in the 80s and up until now, is there still this prejudice? Do you still see that?
Yeah, unfortunately. It's it's quite a conflictful issue in Sápmi. All about, you know, the rights to land and resources and difficult questions.
Is it difficult just in the land ownership because the Sami look just like the Norwegians, so they can blend into
Well,
if they choose to?
in Finnmark there are no ownership of the land. It's kind of a common, yeah.
That's the issue. That's where the issue is, the land ownership.
Yeah, but there is no. It's no one owns land in Finnmark. It's a kind of a common ownership, divided on all inhabitants, no matter who you are.
Oh, so when you own a house,
You own the land the house is on, but not the forest or the mountains or the yeah.
Do you have your book for sale?
Oh no, this is not my book. It's somebody else's book. I'm just talking about it. I'm sorry. Yes, it is for sale, but it is not translated into English yet, but will be. Yeah.
That story about Gro Harlem Brute Line,
Yeah.
is that based on fact?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah.
I know in the book it mentioned how social media and comments on social media impacted, I guess, the rise of social media. You see more oppression that way. I was wondering, I think with the rise of social media in America, issues such as racism kind of come to the forefront for us, and a lot of times those issues are come to light because youth talks about them. I was wondering if there's that divide in Nordic countries where is there more activism among young people now?
Absolutely. More activism, more awareness, and also more and more young people who are kind of looking into family history, finding out they are Sámi. A lot of people are in the north, so it's very positive. And much of the racism, unfortunately, that is to be found in the commentaries are by older people, unfortunately. Most of it.
So, thank you so much. So it's really, thank you for. It's a real privilege to have you here speaking to us, not just about the novel, but also about all sorts of Sámi issues. And so it's really, I know we've gone beyond your immediate expertise, but it's been a wonderful, wonderful discussion. So thank you very much. And everyone, please stay tuned to the programs at Scandinavia House, because there will be more Sámi-related programs in the future, as well as the Sámi Film Festival in the spring. So thank you.
Thank you.